All right, everyone, the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is threatening to leave the European Union and build a European Christian democratic movement. We're going to look at what Prime Minister Orban is proposing and what it all means for the continued transformation of Europe into a post-globalist, nationalist, populist political order. You're going to love it. Greetings, everyone. A very fine evening to you all. If this is your first time here, we post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in light of super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present in light of even better things to come. And so make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You are not going to want to miss a single video where we analyze the collapse of globalism and the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age. And Prime Minister Orban is certainly giving us a window into what that age will look like. But before we celebrate such prospects, let's give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's collagen, available at healthwithsteve.com. Now, if you don't know, collagen may be the closest thing we'll ever to get to a real fountain of youth. Many experts now agree that consuming collagen is crucial as it gets to renew and revitalize how we look and feel. Taking collagen regularly can revitalize your body, can make your skin, bones, and even your hair look and feel more healthy and youthful. Now, if you're interested in learning more about collagen and getting your own supply, well, then visit healthwithsteveturley.com or just click on the link below and check it out. You'd be glad that you did. All right, so the one and only Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is back in the news, and he was on a radio show a few days back on the 17th of January responding to the latest moves by the European Parliament, which appears rather hell-bent on trying to impose Article 7 on Hungary as well as Poland, which would strip Hungary and Poland of their voting rights in the EU. The Parliament passed a resolution calling on the Croatian presidency of the EU not to delay the continuation of Article 7, which is putting significant pressure on the Croatian presidency, which doesn't want to impose Article 7. Now, Hungary and Poland, as Orban pointed out, have many allies: Italy, Austria, the Czech Republic, Slovakia. But given that their own transnational coalition, the European People's Party, the EPP, which is a center-right coalition in the European Parliament, in fact, the largest coalition, and Orban's Fidesz party is a member of it, or at least it has been. Their membership was suspended as of last March in response to what the more centrist globalist members believe to be Orban's abuse of power, right? Sound familiar, by the way? Globalist liberals all use the same playbook on both sides of the pond: abuse of power. So Orban was on the radio show, and what he said was really, really very fascinating. He first reiterated that the European Union is at this point deeply compromised, and I loved how he put it. He noted that the EU is in many respects financially and politically backed by wealthy oligarchs, and the world's chief oligarch is, of course, George Soros. Soros is the world's #1 oligarch who manages his political activities and influences European politics through a mafia-like network, and they're hell-bent on punishing Hungary and Poland. Remember, Hungary in particular, they recently banned Soros's Central European University from operating in Budapest. Orban made Soros one of his main themes in his re-election campaign last spring, which he won in an absolute landslide for his 3rd straight term, to protect Hungary from Soros. Now, what the European Parliament is doing here is they're simply doing the bidding of the world's chief oligarch, who uses his money to arrange world systems that most benefit him. The second thing Orban noted was that things simply can't remain the way they are indefinitely. Either the European Parliament is going to have to radically change, and along with that, the EPP, the coalition to which his party Fidesz belongs, that's going to be a significant change, or Orban has declared that he will start what he calls a new European Christian democratic movement. Now, we've done a video on Orban's project of building a Christian democracy in Hungary a couple of years back. You can check that out by clicking on the link above, and I'll link it down below for you as well in the pinned comment section. But this is the first time Orban's talked openly about building a European-wide Christian democratic movement, which would obviously include Poland and I'm sure many nations in Eastern Europe, perhaps even Italy once Matteo Salvini becomes prime minister and Giorgia Meloni becomes deputy prime minister. Will that not be amazing? I'm going to have to learn my Italian so I can move out there. Now, if you recall, Poland, back in November 2016, just a couple of weeks after Trump won the presidency, Poland held a public mass that was broadcast on national television in the presence of their president, Andrzej Duda, that formally declared Jesus Christ as Lord and King over the nation, and they prayed that he would rule and bless their government, their educational institutions, their families, their laws. You can actually still check that out on YouTube. It's a really beautiful ceremony. Again, I'll link that up for you as well. I'll have you do your homework tonight. And Matteo Salvini of Italy, he's repeatedly stated that he is recapturing Italy for Christ to bring back and promote and defend Italy's Christian identity. And when I watched this interview with Orban, I was reminded of how his proposal for this European-wide Christian democratic movement is a particular outworking of what scholars have identified as a trend known as the internationalizing of the nationalist right. And again, we've talked about this on a number of our other videos. The internationalizing of the nationalist right. So what this means is that while the various nationalist right parties have, of course, all focused primarily on local and national elections, they all recognize that transnational politics are in many ways just as important, if not in the case of the European Union, sometimes even more important. And this is because the ultimate adversary in all this is globalization. And globalization is, by definition, transnational. And so virtually all of the national right parties and organizations out there have begun to mobilize beyond just the national level, creating networks with like-minded parties and organizations in other countries. And so what Orban appears to be doing here is giving a very clear and powerful vision for what just such an internationalizing of the nationalist right could look like. In terms of the vision of Christian democracy proper, Orban alluded to the specifics throughout his interview. Christian democracy involves fundamentally securing the borders of a nation in order to secure its culture. So we secure our borders in order to secure our culture. And this goes back to the cultural anthropological principle that we've talked about again on a number of other videos. Open borders mean open values, okay? Open borders mean open values. Cultural anthropologist Mary Douglas, the British anthropologist, she developed this critical connection between borders and bodies in human culture. So have you ever noticed, for example, that if there are restrictions as to who can get married in a population, like Jews, for example, have you noticed that such restrictions of who you can marry tend to mirror restrictions of who's allowed into the community, right? If you're not allowed to marry someone outside of the group tends to have very closed borders. The boundaries for your body tend to reflect the wider boundaries of the group to which you belong. The do's and don'ts regulating national boundaries are lived out personally via the moral codes inscribed on individual bodies. If anyone can enter into your country, well, then by definition, you can marry anyone. If there are no restrictions at your national border, there'll be a comparable absence of restrictions in your personal moral order. So if these cultural anthropologists are correct, and I most certainly believe that they are, then there's a plausible cultural sense that open borders mean open values. Open borders mean open values. And so rather than open up their borders to anyone and everyone, Christian democracies enforce a high degree of border security so as to maintain the integrity of a distinctively Christian culture, civilization, way of life. And then that leads to the other notion that Orban brought up. I'm going to try to speak tonight. And that's how the increase in population in Hungary is not going to be through migration, but rather through the promotion of procreation and fertility. Again, we've done other videos on this with the Hungarian government as well as Poland, where they've been implementing pro-life, pro-family policies. And in terms of Hungary, they've actually increased their births by upwards of 40%. You can actually check out the video we did on a nationalist baby boom that's going on throughout these countries, where governments like Hungary's are offering enormously enticing tax credits and other subsidies that are indeed effectively reversing the demographic decline that has so plagued Europe over the last few decades. So there's no question that Viktor Orban represents one of the most exciting and far-thinking personalities on the world stage. And we'll certainly be keeping our eyes on how things develop with the European Parliament and hopefully very soon, a renewed Christian Europe. Now, before you go, we just posted a great video on the impeachment fail for Democrats. As things stand, not a single Republican senator is poised to vote to remove Trump. I think it'll absolutely make your day. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.